Hi, this is Rory. Today we're going to talk about paint in Watercolor Your Love Life with Rori Raye. Let's think of words in language of relationships. I speak words to you as paint. Last video we talked about the emotion behind the words that you use as the brush. So today we're going to talk about the materials of the paint, and then we'll talk about water, and then we'll start putting them all together for you. So what is paint? It's made up of minerals and flowers and tea and whatever you want to use as a paint. Ink. You can use, so many people use latex paint. There's all kinds of ways to make colors of paints. What is distinct about watercolor paint is it's made to be transparent, completely transparent, which is different than all other media, even watercolor media. You can't make acrylics like watercolor, even if you put a lot of water in them. Watercolor paint is made to be transparent so that if I were to put 15 layers of paint on here after each one dries, I would still be able to see the paper. I would still get the reflection of light from the white paper through all those layers of paint. That is one thing that makes watercolor so unique. So think about this, no matter how many layers of paint you put on yourself, no matter how many thoughts you think, no matter what you're going through, no matter what is happening environmentally that's triggering you, you are still you. You're still you in there. You can still be felt. How much you are blocking the expression of that you are, that's kind of what this series is all about. And some fresh ways to consider melting and softening those blocks and allowing the you that is the paper to shine through. Talk about that more when we talk about papers. So paint. What do watercolor paints do? Watercolor paints come in tubes, many different brands. They come in little pans of hard color. Everybody always starts with the pans because they're inexpensive, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as they are transparent watercolor paints. The qualities of paints, as you spend more and more for them, is something you can discover for yourself. They do different things. If you go to Blick, which is like Disneyland for artists, you will discover so many paints, so many brands. And you'll see Grumbacher and Winsor Newton and Da Vinci and all kinds of paints that have been around for a long time. But what is happening now is the brand of the moment is made by Daniel Smith. Why is Daniel Smith colors so much in vogue now? Because Daniel Smith Company has figured out to make paints that aren't just red or just green, even though shades of those greens, when you put them on the paper with water, they turn many colors. Some of his paints, like undersea greens, start as green, then it turns pink, then it might turn blue. So it adds an extra level of unpredictability to what is the unpredictability of watercolor. And a lot of artists are just having super fun with them. I am. They have iridescent ones, electric blue, iridescent colors. He also has things you can put on the paper, like black or blue, that actually are paper, not paint, but they actually are paper pulp. And so you can paint over them in a transparent way with his colors. However, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm really excited, I want to try all the weird Daniel Smith colors, but sometimes I get frustrated with those. Why? Because I really just want to put red on the paper and I want to make my own orange. I don't want to buy somebody else's mixed orange. You ever feel that when you're talking to somebody? I just want to be plain and simple and straight. I want to be working with the cards I'm familiar with straight primaries that I can mix up and make my own. I don't want to use somebody else's exotic creation. Clever, high-end words, correct words, PC words, when I'm really feeling something strongly. So you have a choice. You can start with a pan of a lot of different colors, or you can start with red, blue, and yellow. However, there's a lot of reds and a lot of blues and a lot of yellows. So I'll give you some of my recommendations for paints that you want. You want a blue, and you don't just want one blue. Everybody uses ultramarine blue. French ultramarine blue or ultramarine blue. Why? Okay. It is a color that mixes, that is very dark, very strong. It stays on the paper. You can use it almost as a black because it's so deep and almost opaque, although it's not. And if you mix it with burnt umber, you get black. Now, there are lots of ways to mix black. You could just mix blue, red, and yellow, and you'll get black. But watercolor artists some use them black straight from the tube, but most of us like to mix up blacks, all different kinds, and mix up grays, all different kinds. So you're gonna want those two colors for sure, because that's how you're gonna get a dark, okay? And then everybody wants a sky blue, right? Sky blue, so you're gonna want a cerulean blue or a cobalt blue. Good sky colors. One of my favorite colors is cerulean blue. I also have a favorite blue color called Mayan Blue Genuine by Daniel Smith. I just fell in love with it. You're gonna fall in love with your own colors. I also fell in love with a yellow called Orland. It's not a yellow cadmium yellow. It's a very light yellow. It may not do good for you as your first tube because it doesn't really give you the yellow experience. So you might want to get a cadmium yellow, medium, okay? Then you want to get a red. So you can get a crimson, which would be an alizarin crimson. That's a great color. And it is what we call a cool red because it goes over into blues a little bit. And you can get a cadmium red or a version of cadmium red. Windsor red is one of my very favorites. It just feels red, like a nice red. And when you mix it with the yellow, it turns into a nice orange, right? The only color that doesn't seem to really mix up great as far as I'm concerned is green. So I suggest you get a green. You can get a sap green, that's kind of standard. It gives you a bright kind of a tree-like green. And if you want to get very tricky, there's no end to greens that you can find. But I would say, those four. Get yourself a yellow that you like, get yourself a red that's straight, maybe get yourself crimson red, get yourself a cobalt or a cerulean, which is a really fun, unique blue cerulean, and French ultramarine, and you'll have something to start with. And then just pick whatever appeals to you that you can afford out of that. All right, so how do we put colors down? How do we start? In other words, words are kind of in your brain, right? So how do you start? Well, there are lots of ways. Everybody likes to do it differently. These are great. I want to show you everything with a paint in it so that it doesn't just look like a white bowl. If you want to do a whole big, cover this in blue, then you're going to want to make a big mess of blue with a lot of water in it so you don't have to keep mixing. And you want to put the big brush in there and get it all over the place. So you may want a bigger bowl than this. But these are nice bowls for several colors. You want to mix a bunch of colors at once that you might be interested in using so you don't have to stop in the middle. You just want to keep going, right? And then there are these kinds of things that I'm going to show you with a lot of paint on it. This is a palette. And these days, a lot of us watercolors or colorers who are kind of into fast and loose, which means I don't care about the details so much. I really just want to express myself on the page and let the details of the face or the landscape emerge from the painting. I do not like to draw so much beforehand. I like to draw, then I like to make a drawing. But I would rather just paint out the shapes. It's always my most fun experience. I can show you some of my paintings where I have done a lot of drawing beforehand and some where I have just really let the paint do the job. So this is messy, and There's no need to clean it up because I've got colors in there that are pretty clear, sometimes in here. And when a watercolor paint dries out, all you have to do is put water in it again. And I like to see all the different greens. I like to mix them up. I like to see what's going on. I like to have my blues here. I like to mix reds and stuff in here. You can see something really shiny here. That's a Daniel Smith copper. All right, and I like to mix things up. Why? Because that's who I am. I'm a messy thought person. I'm a person who loves to be in chaos. To me, that is the utter feminine energy. Organizing paint seems to me to be in the exact opposite of what it is I want to do. I want to grab a brush, put a lot of water in it, pick the first color that appeals to me, that feels red, let's say, put it down on something, and then if I want to mix another color, I'll put that in there. But most of the time, I want to use colors straight and let them mix on the paper with the water. So that's a whole nother lesson. So messy is good for me. I can identify my red spots. I can identify what I like. So I keep emotionally moving through it. And then here is another way to put paints down that is very, very popular. That's a big metal tray. Okay, so I would just put red, blue, yellow in there and the brown. I just put things in there, and then I just dump the water in there with my brush and start mixing around, and before I know it, I'm using this. The only reason I don't use that very much, and I use this more, is because this is small. This takes up so much room that I would need to be in a big studio table. And even then, I like to stay in a space. So I don't even use these very much. What I do is I have a whole bunch of brushes in front of me so that I can pick up whatever brush I want to use. I have my water, which is always clean. As soon as it turns a color, I put it in the kitchen and clean it up, because that is the most important thing for me, this water. Sometimes I'll put some water into one of these, mix some paint in it, and throw it at the paper, and then start working from there. There's no end to the creativity of expression that you can develop, but we want to start sort of from your options here. So I use something small. I like, if I paint outside, I want to be able to take something small. I have room for my brushes, sometimes a pencil. I have this water, and I can stay in a little space with a little table that I have. And I'll take pictures of my setup here that I've done, for me. It works for me. And what I'm interested in is what works for you. So if you're going to find out what works for you in using these paints, let's figure out, without using your brain, just through experimenting, what about paint feels like words to you? That's the whole point. What feels like words? Does red have a feeling for you? Does it make you feel bright and sparkly and strong? Does blue make you feel moody and kind of dark-edged and tears? What if you want to use a black? What if you want something really dark, so you buy black and you just want black on there? What does that feel like to you? And if you want to feel bright, it's not a color that you can put on there like you can with oil, it's the paper. So what does it feel like to leave pieces of paper open and let that be your white? What does yellow feel like to you? What do you like to use? So I'm going to kind of clean this up and set up some paints, and then I'll start showing some paints with different brushes to you and see what they feel like, mixing them with water. I want you to start thinking about the words as they are to you. What do you feel like using? So all you need to do is kind of walk around, see what's going on in your brain, see what you say to people about the day. Do you just automatically say, oh yeah, it was fine, it was nice, it was good, it was okay, oh, it was, does that feel expressive enough to you? Or would you like to make it a color that is, ooh, I felt all kind of sparkly and fresh today. It felt like water on the branches. In other words, do you want to be more inventive with your words so that they suit your emotions more, so that they express the emotions more? So have fun. So this assignment, I guess, is to get a few paints, some inexpensive way to put the paints on a piece of plastic so that you can mush around with them. And get yourself some water and just start seeing what the paint, the color means to you, what it does for you. All right, we'll start working on the paper next one.